The tragedy of the deaths of 21 young people at a tavern in Scenery Park in East London has once again cast the spotlight on the massive issue that is alcohol use and abuse by children. For more on this, we're joined by the Managing Director at South African National Council on Alcoholism and Drug Dependence, Roger Weimann. Roger, thank you very much for availing yourself this afternoon. From the work that you do, what is it that we are seeing in terms of trends? When are young people in this country introduced to alcohol?
Thank you, Dudu, and I'm glad to be here. You know, we live in a society that actually glamorizes and encourages alcohol use. Our actions as adults are what the children learn from. So we as adults are actually encouraging our children at a very young age to start experimentation with not only alcohol but also with other drugs, and by doing so they learn their actions from us. So alcohol use is prevalent as an experimentation and also as a means for the children to escape really from the common difficulties that they are facing.
So it's a case of children doing as they see and not necessarily as they are being told. When you say escape, what do young people need to escape from?
You know, Dudu, we live in a society that is very much focused on instant gratification. So everything that is everything that we want, we can easily and quite quickly obtain. So for the children to when I say instant gratification, when I say they're looking for an escape, they're looking for an escape from possibly the humdrum or the boredom that they might experience. And what is the easiest thing that they turn to? They turn to what they see the adults in their life turn into.
What then do we need to do, right? So I don't know about your generation, but in my generation, I do maybe remember seeing adverts for cigarettes. Alcohol not that prominent, I guess maybe that thought or memory escapes me for now. But maybe if you could relay what it is that you remember, and if that has a direct correlation when you say that we glamorize the drinking of alcohol with the advertising industry as well. Is there a correlation between that and then seeing young people drink at the pace that they do?
Absolutely. You know, young people are bombarded nowadays with social media, with television, with, you know, you very, very seldom see a young person walking down the street without being on their phone. So they have direct access to all of this advertising. And it's not necessarily to say that there's a direct link, but it's ingrained in us that, you know, if you look at the adverts that are related to alcohol use, it's very much a pleasure lifestyle that is portrayed in those adverts, and that message is being given to the young people that if I want to experience that pleasure, this is what I need to do. I remember when I was young, yes, you know, there were adverts for cigarette use, for alcohol use, and this is the reason why we stopped allowing the cigarette use adverts on television, is that particularly for that reason, that it glamorized the use of cigarettes and minimized the health consequences that were related to tobacco use.
What then to do, right? Because you'll find an argument of an adult saying, well, I am of the legal age, I do not abuse alcohol. So you find terms also that are bandied about, right? Mommy juice or daddy's medication, and the adults will tell you, I don't get drunk in front of the child. Yes, I can consume alcohol, but I don't get drunk. Is there a thin line? What then needs to happen to turn the tide?
There is a very thin line. When I say we encourage alcohol use, it's not necessarily the fact that we are drinking to excess as adults, but the fact that every time we want to have a celebration, or even if it's just a Friday, or if we are watching the soccer or the rugby game, what do? We open a bottle of beer, or we have a drink, or we have a glass of wine, or and that is the message that we're sending them. That for us to be able to relax, we need to be able to have alcohol with it. So we are encouraging alcohol use, not necessarily by the fact that we are falling down drunk, but by the fact that we are using alcohol as a means for ourselves to relax and get rid of the pressures of modern life.
Right. I mean, we're talking about this because there's been a tragic incident of 21 young people losing their lives. But you will remember also during the hard lockdown, people making their own concoctions, using fruit or any other means. The black market was also very much active during that time. So that didn't go any way in curbing the situation. From the work you do, I do wonder whether South Africa, when we compare with the rest of the continent, are we the most consumers of alcohol? If so, do we then need to take a look at changing legislation where this issue is concerned?
Judy, in recent statistics, it has shown that South Africa is one of the countries in the sub-Saharan Africa with one of the highest levels of heavy episodic drinking. So what this means is that the word binge drinking comes to mind. We tend to spend a lot of our time over the weekends or at a party drinking quite heavily. Even though we might not drink during the week, we tend to drink quite heavily when we do drink. And recent and statistics show that out of a population of over 60 million in South Africa, only about 30% are actual drinkers. Yet that 30% drink quite excessively. And what this means is that is the image that we are portraying. In terms of legislation, the legislation is there. The legislation, the rules, the regulations, and all of that is there. And what the incident over the weekend has shown us is that we need to work together, not just as government and not just as enforcement agencies, but also as community, to ensure that we are protecting our children, that we are looking after their interests and providing protective factors that will lower their risk of engaging or experimenting in substance use.
Sure. This excessive drinking that you speak of, after a while, it takes its toll not only on your body, and it doesn't become fun anymore. However, I do wonder, even though we can talk about changing legislation, are we not maybe treating, the symptom and not the cause, for lack of a better phrase? If you just take a walk in many of our townships, you see young men and women with green, brown bottles very early in the morning because there's no dignity in the day. You don't have a sense of, well, I'm going to wake up and there's, some cause or some direction for the day. So young people, this is also a country of very high unemployment, the most unequal society in the world, where people could say, well, yeah, hey, I'm going through a lot and I'm using this to just make me cope.
Absolutely. We need to, as community, as family, as adults, we need to be looking at what are we providing as alternatives to substance use for our children. We need to be able to offer them activities or alternatives to that kind of lifestyle. And what I mean by that is we see this with a lot of the prevention programs that we run as SANCA around the country. We don't just focus on the substance use, but we focus on the factors that lead to the substance use. So we are looking at environmental changes, individual changes. We're looking at community changes, things like that. So for instance, environmental changes, creating sporting clubs, creating alternatives that will allow the children to find their specific talent or find something that they might be interested in, and provide a space where they can release their personality without being under the influence of a substance.
Roger Weimann is the Managing Director at the South African National Council on Alcoholism and Drug Dependence. Thank you very much for your time.